remember we had four groups of budget types based on those approaches, and we're only able to cover 3 yesterday. So we'll start from the 4th one, which is who is preparing the budget, the preparer. And we said, based on who is preparing the budget, we can have 2 types of budgeting as well. Yeah. The first one is the participatory. And the second type is the non-participatory. And it's quite self-explanatory from the name. Participatory means a lot of people are involved, right? But not just by that. The easiest way to think about it is that this is prepared, the budget is prepared by junior management. Yeah, which means the managers are the ones preparing their budgets. Yeah, and once they are done prepare it, they send it to senior management for approval. So it's prepared by junior management and supported. Yeah, and approved by the senior management. So invariably, what you're saying is that this type of budget is bottom up. So it starts from the bottom, then goes up for support and approval. The opposite is what you get in non-participatory, where the junior management are not actively involved. And in this case, senior management just set the budget. So this for non-participatory, they don't need those junior guys to come in. So the senior management just set the budget. For juniors management to execute. Yeah, and this is definitely a top down because it starts from this top and enforced on the guys at the bottom. When you have a situation where the junior guys are the ones setting the budget, they are likely to take ownership of that budget because they know that they set it. Sometimes when you set your own target, you want to make it work because you're going to kind of feel like this is my baby. Yeah, and that is why if you have a participatory goal congruence, is likely to be achieved. So here, goal congruence is likely, but here is more difficult. Yeah. However, what you might get with the top-down approach is because, remember, it's coming from the senior management, is the fact that the corporate goals definitely will be focused on. So corporate goals might be achieved. Yeah. But here, it might not. Because depending on how efficient, how effective, how professional those junior managers are, they might not focus on what is crucial for the company. Yeah. And because it's also involving so many people, the junior staff, the senior staff, review, and all of that, this is going to consume more time. So this consumes more time. Whereas this will be less time. Because remember, this one is just coming straight from the top. We've done the budget. You guys take this, go and run with it. Yeah. And because it's coming from the top management on this side, business secret information. Yeah. Secret info is unlikely to leak. Yeah, so it's easier to keep it secret if it's just coming from management, because management will definitely just going to be few people. when information starts going around so many people, there's a likelihood for leakage. So, and that's why in participatory, leakage is likely. Right? You see, we are making good comparison just like we did for the other types because it's easier to follow it like that. Yeah. And because the budget for participatory is also coming from those guys. Remember, I said it earlier on. Better motivation will be achieved here. They will take ownership because they prepare the budget. Yeah. And what you get is a less motivation by those junior managers. They might not even be happy. They might just feel like you're imposing budget on them, right? Yeah. And lastly, is the fact that the junior managers will always want to shine. They want to deliver. They want to achieve. They want to show that they've delivered and done what they needed to do. They might not set a challenging target for themselves. So what would they do? They might build in slacks or what you call inefficiencies. Yeah. Or you call it budget padding. All this just means that you are setting ambitious budgets. Yeah. All of these might be built in the budget. Yeah. Very unlikely. Because remember, the budget is coming from the senior guys. So look at all the differences. If you look at it this way, definitely you are more likely to remember those differences because those are the typical way you also find it in exams. Differentiate between this or that, or how does this compare with that? What they are just asking you is to compare the two. Which one is good, which one is bad, or what does it mean? Yeah. Okay, so that is the last group that we were meant to look at under types of budget. Now, we need to look into something slightly different, but still on budgeting. And that is how ABC can help budgeting process. Remember, we looked at ABC when we're talking about costing techniques. So how ABC can be used, that's what we want to look at now to improve costing and budgeting process. So different departments are coming with their cost budget and all of that. So the question is, how can you use your knowledge of ABC to improve that cost budgeting? And that is called activity-based budgeting. Which is another form of budgeting, but nothing different from the budgeting types that you've learned. It's just that this is looking at this different approach, leveraging on your ABC approach. And like we said, what are those ABC approach? We said, first of all, you need to know that the overhead definitely must be significant to use ABC. Yeah, just to give you a refresh. Yeah. And we said we need to accumulate overhead in cost books. Once that has been done, you identify the cost drivers. Yeah. The next thing is to calculate the absorption rate. Yeah, but in ABC, we'll call it cost driver rate. Then you can absorb using that rate. So you absorb those overheads you have in the cost pool based on the rate that you have calculated. That is your approach for ABC. And that is the same approach that activity-based budgeting want to use. Yeah, and once that is done, what you get is a budget process. Yeah, that is using a more accurate costing. Yeah, and if your costing is very accurate, then you can say definitely that you have a planning. Because remember that your budgeting is a planning tool. So then that means planning is also accurate, which is where we want to be actually. Yeah. And if that is the case, likewise, we can have a better control of the cost. And why do we have a better control? Because we're going to have a better understanding. Remember, when we did ABC, it's part of advantages of ABC as well, that the more we understand our cost, the more we're able to control it. Yeah, because more understanding means that we know the cost drivers. We know the activity that is making us to incur more. We know the activity that if we can reduce that activity, our cost will come down. So that helps us to control our cost even better. But likewise, not like it's the best, it has its disadvantages as well, and very similar to ABC. Yeah, and it's just about the fact that it's costly and time consuming. So just like ABC, it is not an approach that you just want to use because you feel like using it. You only use it when you're sure that it's going to be value adding. So which means you only use it when you're sure that the benefit is more than the cost. So you can't just use it. You only use it when the benefit is more than the cost. And if you remember, there was one question we solved under ABC where whether you use ABC or use the traditional absorption method, the unit cost of the product is the same. And we said, don't use ABC because if ABC is going to give you something just slightly different from what traditional costing will give you, what's the point? It's a lot of work to use ABC. Use the general traditional absorption cost, that use the general rate and do your costing and save time rather than calculating different absorption rates based on the cost driver and start absorbing based on each rate. And you spend all of that time and eventually you are getting a value that is not different from traditional method. Yeah. So same thing for ABC. The benefit has to be more than the cost for us to use it. Yeah. And where is this suitable? Yeah. Exactly what we talked about when we did ABC. And quickly, where are those situations where ABC is considered relevant? And so if you're going to use activity-based budgeting, you use it in an environment that has complex production process or manufacturing process. Yeah, there are many products involved. Yeah, and likewise, overhead must be significant. Yeah, because those are the things that will really ensure that we get value from the process. There's no point spending time on tiny overhead, right? And also the market is competitive. So we have to ensure that our cost is accurate so that our pricing is not overstated. Yeah, we cannot afford to overcost the product. If we overcost the product, the pricing will be too much, and our competitors will be selling cheaper than us, and nobody's going to patronize us. As simple as that.